morning, Learned Council.
Good morning, Lead Council.
Learned Council.
Good morning, Learned Council.
Welcome back to the TRRC.
Bismillah TRRC Kotanga.
Thank you very much.
Numbara.
May I remind you that you are still under oath. And as you very well know, the warnings that I informed you of yesterday still apply. Could you confirm?
Thank you. I remember everything.
Yesterday, we were dealing with your personal experiences of human rights violations during the Jame era. And you have explained some of the personal experiences you had of interference with the judicial work. And you've given us several examples. Examples of magistrates giving certain decisions. The government is not happy with those decisions. And some punitive measures taken against that magistrate.
Me misalo do edol min dina jawole miti ko kiti bundal la kiti ndirlal melan ko lebe dumala magistrate court ika kiti o kuntu nyala nyaado me alon ko ni ya kuntu abukana dia mansa kunda e tumala men ninga atare sulo soto case nyinto abukada wala fana o kiti tela nyi magistrate o nyimfana ikana deto la kan yewo misalo dina.
You talked about your own experience in Basse, wherein you were basically transferred, or starting from Banjul, to be more precise, you were transferred from jurisdiction to jurisdiction because of unhappiness with some of the decisions that you've made.
You are Banjul, ye bondi Banjul, ye samba base, ke bondi dingira kiti bunda ro kare samba kiti bunda ro kuka me ya longo ika kangol men kundu ikela kiti ro kundu nyame abukatara abuka mansa kunda men besiru nu abukese wo wala ka sabu ke soundin dingira do kiti bunda.
One example you gave was particularly interesting.
Misal kilindi beje kilindi o misal let me ya longo wode o em sula bakele.
That is the case of the July 22nd movement people in Wuli.
July 22nd moldi men ya lonko wolle be wulli.
People like Kandakase Juwaras.
Abe kono Kandakase Juwara
and others.
Anin do ko tangodu.
You then talked about a very interesting case in which you were involved in.
Nuinarna case do fam foja me ya lonko wo case nyinde wo nyabo warta bakal me ya lonko ita fam kunni ngodunda akonole.
The case of Hamadi Sow.
Case member ko Hamadi Sow la case.
That is a very interesting one.
Munye case ku diamlet me ya lonko nyabo warta bake.
And now we started talking about the case of Pahari Jame.
Silang isa damuta hapa hari jamela kuwa nying ala kesi nying ngadamuta wafanana.
And Lamin Jobate.
Ning Lamin Jobate.
And Joguba.
Anin Joguba.
Could you proceed from there and tell us about that case? You've gone as far as telling us about the assignment of the case to Justice Inkia.
Sai isa damuta ka tentendu wodo ya mutawodo ya fonyela nunga haninka bi case ni wala nyimo sabola case ni biri ya nati ya di kiti tela mena wala Justice Inkiati.
Thank you very much. That was a peculiar case. That is the case of the state against Dr. Njoguba.
Oketa kiti kawakuliti menketa Dr. Njoguba la kitoti.
Because that was the first one. That was the economic crime charge.
Atu wala foloti menketa banko fankatinya tumiroti.
Let's talk briefly about the economic crime law.
Silanga diamu wati sutun kono nga jube nyi fankatinya luwal nyinti.
The Economic Crimes Act,
Luwa membe marali nyi fankatinya kunyal.
you'd agree is in fact a revamped dress pretty much. It was a decree and it's now dressed into an act of parliament. An act for that matter.
Ibe sonna mala nyinna ko luwa nyi me alongo wolbe nyi fanko kunyal to. Wamu luwa ti me alongo ikafume decree. Andu inata na yele mani inata na dundu na luwa buko nyi kono ikafume act.
Yes, I'll agree with that.
It's
a decree that was having a double effect on the citizenry.
In fact, its provisions are pretty much antithetical to the human rights provisions of the Constitution.
Yes, I'll agree with it to an extent. That's why I said it has a double effect.
Yeah,
the first is the positive effect of preventing people from abusing their powers and offices and acting in excess.
Follow, a sarto ala lolu la bijele men se molu bali kuruya ke wala ka lana tambo ke office kono ka fanko tinya anin ka kolu ke men ya lon ko ni sarto manta nyola aya se molu bali wala.
But even at that, Mr. Mboch, legally speaking, you could argue that those provisions are redundant because what they seek to do could be achieved by other provisions in the criminal code.
Wolam nyinte ko hanu fango amanlo la sotokatu na bankola kruya sartol ni luwalu men be laring ni moyo ku kurum façon luke luwal ni o sartol fawlsio mari kulunole satara amanke ni luwa kutoti tele ni mbandi ten.
Yeah, that I will agree with to the extent that the negative effect of the economic crimes decree
mbeso na wala le katu ni ajibe nyimfanka tinya sarto me yalo nditeng ala fanna me yalo ko mukujen ken nyinneti meye mantoro sabu
is to use it to silence critics of the then administration.
Ya wuli nyine kama kamolu dendi men yalo ko wolle kata moluti menuka doyaro ke kulula menuka te kutinyari ngulti menuka bo sembeti wala karola.
And by pretty much including it as a saved act by the Constitution, you basically tied. You cannot challenge its constitutionality in view of the fact that it is already sanctioned by the Constitution.
Arhani kabi komeng abelare nyame ko luwa nyinkono. Ala dero nyinkang luwa buko nyinkono. Ite gulino la kam yafo ko iba bantambilla nyaado ka kele ka tunga be luwa buko nyinkono.
Yes, you know, in law it's very difficult to make conclusions.
Omutonyali kaduniye luwa lanya dolu jibe akakoleale pour kata koti alfo ko dandula.
Because there is a way out of every situation.
Katu ko kundi lanya keta nyawonya ndi nyama silo bijele isi fintino wakono
yeah, I will agree with you to an extent, but then it is possible to challenge its provisions for being unconstitutional and being unlawful when the need arises.
Mbesonna ya fanyamen hanfo tukumudoto ka foko kulo menni sarto manta wala ni luwa manta barbitun silo bijele mosi tukum balano tukum la damin ning ayatara mfutatama hanfo akobulita.
Well, Mr. Mboja, we would leave this debate for some other day.
Thank you very much,
But you agree with me that the test of constitutionality is the Constitution itself.
Yeah, also to an extent, not 100%, because if a law is inconsistent with the Constitution, it is null and void to the extent of its inconsistency.
Kadu ni ajibe ni lua atatake fenti meya lonko amallo lasuruna bankola lua sarti bukuba nyinkono wodo mukuleti meya lonkasi landi karala.
That is a basic rule of interpretation in constitutional law.
Lua la karola kala kanna soro nyingo mala tu follow de ni ajibe lua la karola.
That is why I said the test of constitutionality
Wala sabu nko pour lua nyin ala koto boro
is the Constitution itself.
wala lua buko nyim fango de memba kono.
So in order to be able to determine whether a law is inconsistent with the Constitution and therefore unconstitutional,
Wodo sa ni lafta ka koto bo ka foko lua anin lua buku ba nyim fana ni ko be fulo nyim ibe kun takila ka jube jumala fon be sabatila.
you have to put it against the Constitution.
Foisa ni constitution no nyim lua buku ba nyim fana foisa ni kun takki fulo ya jube.
Is that not the case?
That is
Wonde
correct.
ko la nyati.
Omuto nyalti.
But when the law is saved by the Constitution,
Barni lua nyim o tankata constitution no ya tankandi.
just like the decrees,
Comme misal fe ko decree ni
it is pretty much.
o kamuntale ko
It depends on how it is done, but it looks
o suta ko ya la nyame
like it has been incorporated into the Constitution.
ambe o kamudum fele ko ya ni ya dundi constitution lua buku ba nyim kono ka dunda ko.
I haven't looked at the provision to see the actual effect of what they have done.
Kon memba fan kono de majube ka long e muneka akono de.
But if it is incorporated into the Constitution, you therefore cannot challenge it anymore. Because it is now part of the Constitution.
Ni ngadra ya dunna luwa buko nyin kono woto han kabi te bantam billa ni luwa buku ba nyin kono ka foko membe je ibani o tamande
Yes, I will agree with you, Council, again, but yeah.
But anyway, let's leave this for another
that's
day.
because constitutional issue, yes.
Yes.
Constitutional quality.
But for now, we just agree that that law is a draconian law.
Exactly. Yeah, part of it, the latter part of the decree, especially on the issue of bail, is where the unconstitutionality arises.
Mbesonna wala bari ala fanna do me ya lonko amang akeja uyata wole alabandula me ya lonko bel ko ba ko mem balanta bel ko la wole famani sartol manta.
And like you said, in spite of its good aspects, it was liable or amenable to abuse by the executive.
Ya lauda ni nyala me ya lonko executive wala msantron kolti wolka lana tambile.
Yeah, I will agree with that. I will say rather that it was designed in purpose to silence critics, because anyone in the system then
mesonna ko tonyala ya dada wala kama andunya yitel tama be tamari nyina ko mennu ka doyaro ke kukurun ko la man ka bo man sakunda la karola ya o wato la ya nyina kam ma wotilolu kono pour ka o mariolu dendi.
That's a damning statement, Mr.
Yes.
Boch.
Yes.
Wouldn't you be contented with just the formulation that it was used instead of designed? Because the design and the use may be different. It may have been designed with good faith objectives, with great bona fides, but its application may have been malafides.
Bari iba dadala tumo na kalondi ase keno akatangani ya kendo le kama bari iba tamandi la tumo menna doli yake ya kanyile kama nyado nyama purka imuna fangala ka dunola doluka.
Yeah, I have a reason for saying so.
Ngada lilo sotole de purka ofu.
The promulgation of the decree
came
at a time that the then government of the APRC was AFPRC was trying to establish itself.
memu AFPRC man sakundati iba katakango tumole purka isimulu londi kabamba.
And then there were so many critics
Andu mo jama sotonta melu be doyaro ke kan
against the military regime.
beni alon ko be man sojar man sakunda nyin doya kan.
And it was promulgated at that time when anyone criticizes the system.
Andu ya wuli ya fintindi wo wato le kalondi ko mo womonding yewo kuolu lanya doya.
You become the victim of the act or the law.
Goto lua wala wasarto itemari binadu na mantoro konole.
Exactly.
Well, that is a belief you have. I beg to differ.
That was my understanding.
And I beg to differ. For I think the Economic Crimes Act was Decree 33.
Decree 33.
And that was passed very early on in view of the AFPRC mantra of transparency, probity, and accountability. You remember that?
I remember that very well.
And the belief at the time was there was a lot of theft of public resources leading to significant economic losses.
Andung idolata menon wala nyindiko wato la fanko sunyaro sia batan wo wato wala ya sabu itoli jikita nyinde burka nyilwata ka dundi ka dum mansa kunda foka naful jamalla.
So it was passed at that time. The objective may have been laudable.
Ya munda ya luwa nyidundo wato la bari hamen ko medin asikeno ay hamen ku kendotin.
But it was seen that it could be used to clobber political enemies.
Bari doli ya jele ko asikeno ya luwa nyidundi le ron puruka politika nyaton ko dolta ke kele.
Hence the charge against your clients.
Tumala menna ye tumiro dola itfan la kiliano do kam.
Because what would constitute economic losses is quite easy.
So
tell us about the case. The charge was economic crimes.
Yeah, you know, we have procedures guiding the courts. But the then Secretary General, who was supposed to be the principal witness,
Secretary General
Name?
I believe Sabali, he replaced Dr. Joguba.
Which Sabali?
Momodu Sabali.
Lata like a fine Momodu Sabali, atele saita Dr. Njoguba la palasoto.
I don't want to say he refused to come to court, but he failed to come to court to testify.
Ntafono la deko abalanta le kana kiti bundala. Bari aman silota kana kiti bundala kana sede yaro.
Was he subpoenaed to come?
He should have been a prosecution witness.
Atanyanta kela kiti ndir selo letinu.
But I can recall that we, the defense, have requested for his personal attendance.
Baring hakilo bala nyina ko. Ndol menu be lori nyin tumi moli ndele nyin kanin buru atena sede yarola.
As what?
As a principal witness for the prosecution.
Ake sede kebati kitindro la karola me ya lonko wala be lori nyin mutamolu toyala.
But the ruling went against us.
Of course.
Barinata polu tamandi nyami
it is the prosecution's case.
Golem ko kitindir bunda nyin wolle la kom.
And he sent someone.
It would have been shocking if the court had ruled in your favor.
He delegated a witness.
Represent him.
And that was the only witness for the prosecution.
But
the funny part of the defense
bari intel men be lori muta molu toyala intel men intel lakulu jarajarandi
was the diary that was my client's main exhibit.
wolem diary ti ka kolu safe buko men kono kuke talu wala montela mola sede bambande muti.
I still have that diary with me in my office.
Wo diary hanim biya bente bulule na office kono.
Where the accused person recorded in his own handwriting the instructions of the former president.
Dameng ni muta mo fangoye kuma kangolu safe a fango bulola diary mon kono dameng me yalon ko wolle keta kuma kangolu ti menu bata tumo president bulu ya jamme
as a defense to indicate that he did receive instructions for the arrest and prosecution of the then Justice Wowo.
Andu wala mnyinti we nyine itandiko ya maroli nyine itandiko puru ye mo muta aninka kitindi me yalon ko tumo wala mkitindi lati kafa me Justice Wowo.
In order to appreciate the import of what you have just said, perhaps give us a brief background into the case. What was the case about, so that we can understand actually
case nyimfango ka dunga kono ban ya be fonye abakitata nyame purunsa faham case nyim ever la kamen sata moleja.
This was a complex case and it's intertwined.
Mukitile time yalonko duladolu ala kolu selta nyokam bari duladolu ala kolu dunta nyoto bake.
Break it down into simple facts that we can understand.
Abonye nyoro nyala me yalonko mba faham lale.
Justice Wowo was a judge of the high, in fact, he was a state council. He started as a state council before he was appointed a judge.
Justice Wowo ya damuta tumana na mansa kundala kitembirala mwoti wo janing iba tombo na kake kititelati jojoti.
And then while serving as a judge, he was elevated and promoted to the Court of Appeal.
Wato men abo kitite bundala utumole natala palaso la faka selendi kasamba kitisa inkambundala.
Within a short period of time.
Wati sutum fango kono de.
Roughly about 6 months.
Kari woro wuche okono.
And then elevated again to the position of the Chief Justice.
Andu natala palaso senkang teriandi ka lafa kasamba kake kitindirla kuntioti wala Chief Justice.
But then the sacking of Pa Hari Jammeh and lawyer Lamin Jobate.
Bare Pa Hari Jammeh ila bayo atening lawyer Lamin Jobate
was an issue at the time.
Umukuleti wotembo membe loring.
And then from my client's instructions,
Kabontela kiliano la yamaro lukang.
He was instructed to ensure the arrest and prosecution of then Justice Wowo.
Ye nyine fay pro asipolu tamandi mensa sababu pour ye Justice Wowo muta ka kitindi.
But then Pahari was Solicitor General.
Wotembo Pahari mu Solicitor General leti.
And my learned senior Jobate was Minister of Justice.
Aduna keba me ya lonko wala Lamin Jobate ti. Atelo minister ti wotumo memma sa kitol nintilimula.
These were present at the time of the instruction. The time the instruction was given to the Secretary General.
Adunyilu ya sede ale wato me bo ya marolu dile Secretary General fangola.
And then after the instruction was given
by
the President,
which
was recorded by my client on his diary,
and heard by the Attorney General and the Solicitor General all at the same time.
At the same time.
Attorney General and Solicitor General
the instruction was carried out. Wowo was arrested. He was charged. I can't recall the charge. But then there was a change in circumstances. And the then president, Yaya Jammeh,
andu wotumo Yaya Jammeh atelom president
reneged on his instructions
anata alaw kuma kangolu aseta ko makafa akawolu bai
and said he did not give the instruction.
anata nyina foko atemawo ya marolu di
Because there was a diplomatic issue which arose as a result of the fact that Justice Wowo is an American citizen.
dia moment nata wuli o kola wala nyinti ko kolu nyil nata kole abulu katu nata nyina je ko Justice Wowo atemu America banku dingoleti
And had an American passport.
adum America passport ole babulo ko
He had dual nationality.
Dual nationality.
citizenship.
wanda banku di fula dingole mwati
And then when the American embassy got involved into the case
itum bring America la embassy o ye dabula kito nyin kono
and raised issues about the legality of his arrest and his trial,
inata kolu wulindi menno tilinta ala mutoni ngala kito la tilimbali ala
and then there was a change of instructions
itum yamarol nata falin ko take wutumo
that he never gave the instruction.
ate meye yamarolu dinum sedolu nyala nata lokate mawo
That
yamarol
led to the arrest of both Njogu and Pahari and Jobate.
wala nata ke sababoti ye njogu nimpa hari muta ani lamin jobat
And that
But
warranted
that could have only given rise to a charge of
abuse of office.
abuse of office and false information.
Abuse of office was a charge.
o simen wulindi no wala mka foko ye tinyaro le kela wala ye tilimbali ya le kela office kono
Okay. Whilst the trial was ongoing on the abuse of office,
kito be tama kan tumo men na wo tumiro la karola kafo ye tilimbali ya le ke office kono
Let me ask this question.
aɗum ñininka
How could have Sabali been a witness
sabali ɓe kenola seeɗode
or his representative?
waranto
How
ay me
could
wulinde
either of them have been
waranto itol
a
ɗo
witness to this case?
itol ɗo ɗo ɓe kenola seeɗode ñaadi le ñin fof
Sabali was then the, I don't want to say Deputy Secretary General, but he was a direct assistant to the then Secretary General Njoguba.
da sabali manke secretary general ti wotumo de barbitum a tele simbe secretary general kan wotumo memu Dr. Njogu Bati
And he was like an assistant to Njogu because he said he was present then when the instruction was given.
andon a tele moti mem sinnan ko be Njogu Ba kan ka wotumo ka fanam bijele wo kumolu be fulatu momen
I think this was a case where the witnesses would be those who personally perceived what happened. So I wonder how such can be delegated to somebody else.
mamere ñimɓe kela kuulede me yalon ko seeɗole me yalon fo me yalon tol fawol ɓe num jeeyi ñin jaka yen jakalle ñimɓe kenola ñaadi le e moɓe wumo wulindinola ñaadi le ɓawa itol fawol ɓe ma ɓerin jeen
That was the very reason why we were asking for his appearance, personal appearance.
o dalilo le ya sabu ntel ye nyin kanin ko a fango kumo yena kiti bunda nyin
But that was not the case.
barbitum o manna tam
Instead of coming to court,
ru ate fango yena mabe
he
kiti
wrote his statement,
aya la kuma kalimolu
gave it to
safele
the witness,
aya di sede dola
tendered as an exhibit,
pour ka itande ko nyimmo atela kuma
to
kan
form the basis of his evidence.
pour wala be kala atela sede yaro kuma kan luti
But that is unlawful.
romo luwanta yaalde
That was the order of the day.
otuma wotilolu kono wala mkuti membe lori menkatama
That statement was wrongfully admitted.
wo kuma kango ya dundile kolu kono mem fango ni sarto manda
That is clearly a case of hearsay.
mu kumalde kandede me yalon ko moyla kuma kan walla wote
And the diary, which was the most relevant document in the trial, was I don't want to say
Contemporaneous
rejected,
record.
because it was not rejected, it was returned.
diary me ya lonko wala nyanta kala sede bambandi muti kumolu safeta mem kono ya manka ko balanta la de bari ya murundile
I tendered the diary as an exhibit.
ntenga o diary sambale ka ke sede kamote
It was neither admitted nor rejected.
bidun imanna songatala bari imam balanga la fana
But there is no such position as evidence in limbo. You can mark it for identification, but and use it subsequently. And even marked for identification is not used in Gambian practice. It's used in the international tribunals. But there is no repository for evidence in limbo.
lu o sede yar sifa atana lu al fango kon hanna ro daire ni hanni yar nyan isa tano no iba kala no suter langolti but hanna ro suter lang fan dolla lu al tamandri nyaaro aten mamira beje ni banku ni benka kiti bundal de wala kay munafal ka ni festival ta ka ke suter lang ka fme id bari dolla jang ateje.
The narration is creating a scene
sataro be kule wulindi kan
that will be unfold as we go along.
Me yalon ko akonobe fanula le kabonyoto mbitaka nyame.
Because even though the then Justice Care was we were very close.
Ado hani wotembo from Justice Nkia mole montena katata nyola.
But I will simply say there was a travesty of justice in the case.
Ndebe memfala wala mnyindiko yelua la silo bulale kito nyinkono.
Yeah, because after the rejection of the diary,
birim balango keta diary nyinna kuala.
It was neither admitted nor rejected.
Imanson ka dundi barbitum fana imallo ka balangala.
With all due respect, Mr. Mbod, what you've just said is a contradiction in terms. Yeah, after the rejection of the diary, it was neither admitted nor rejected. It's a contradiction in terms.
After the return of the diary, thank you. After the return of the diary, yes. And
wouldn't that amount to constructive rejection of the evidence, if you will?
Oh, kitio kono foto kela nyindi ko afoko wrong. Sede andro nyingi ibalanta ala ko tilimbali akono mo safono.
No. I say constructive rejection of it. Can't it be interpreted to mean that your application to admit the diary was rejected, considering that the evidence was not allowed in?
Well, that was, yes, I will say yes, because that's a constructive rejection of the diary, but I think it was intended also on purpose.
Bari ila balangu no nya purka wadari dundi mbafala ko yake men kama iye fansun dalilo soto kama.
Did you file an interlocutory appeal on that issue, if that is appealable? Because I think that was the heart of the case.
Inatna wasida dundi le bang government interlocutory appeal purka ko nyinka ka senga njube.
There's no time then for interlocutory appeals.
Before
you will even get your records before the appeal court, the case would have been decided.
Kado hanijanning itebe la ku tembendiringulu la ku parendiringulu futandi la kiti sainkan bundala ubatala leteli kito kundu.
I asked this question just mainly for the purposes of our recommendation. Aren't interlocutory appeals given priority such that I mean they could easily be disposed of and cases continue?
This is a criminal proceeding. Interlocutory appeals are not a ground for a stay of proceedings in the main trial. And even if we had filed an interlocutory appeal, it will not be heard before we determine the main trial. Because I will add here that we know as a team that we are just defending our clients. Because it is a legal requirement. But the result, it was obvious. There will be a conviction.
So you just went through the motions?
Yeah, we were just going through the trial, but I know for sure the result will be an obvious conviction. And that was what happened.
Did you at any point in time harbored any expectations that you could secure an acquittal?
O isina na ganyo sota ko nyin kono fo isila mulbula.
We were on the verge of success, get an acquittal.
Ntatale hanfon katatalo dulala puru inyanta nyimolu bulala nyame.
Because the evidence of the prosecution was too weak.
Adu kitindirla bunda wala sede kolu doya sembo doya batale.
And the evidence of the defense was overwhelming.
Ntelman belorin tankandiro la karola ntella sede kolu wo sembo warabatale otumo.
But the trial judge,
Bari kitindirla fang.
who was Justice Nkia,
Mi yalon ke ka fatale Justice Nkia.
I think news got round that he was going to acquit and discharge them.
Min kibaro nga mira ko wole janjanta kafo abe nyim molu bulalale ye bulaita.
And on judgment day, you were very hopeful.
Munda kiti telu nyin wato be jikirim bake.
I was hopeful 100% that we were going to get an acquittal.
Katu wolung ninjiki fari ngole tata je ko be na molu bulalale.
And you went to court with so much hope and euphoria.
Munda ndana data kiti dula to be jikirim bari ku nyala ba nyin ko nyin nata nake jiki kenza ngote.
Yeah, exactly what happened.
Wala kata.
So, and tell us how things unfolded.
Silang tenten ya fonye ko nyin nata na labanya dile.
Another interesting scenario arose on the judgment day.
Kudo fana nata wuli kiti telu kito kuntulungula me yalonga keta sola koti.
The judgment was scheduled for 10 a.m.
Kiti teolondi men wato men kama wole mtalantang.
We were all in court as expected.
Ndel bebe kiti bunda la koji ko bala nyame.
The judge did not come to court
Itu kiti ndirla manna kiti
till
bunda.
1:30.
For talang kilin nintala.
Everybody was anxious,
Mo bebe deunding.
nervous,
Mo
and
bebe
worried.
sularing. Mo be akata mo be deun koti.
Where was he?
Abenu mindole ata kiti tela.
The judge was in his chambers.
Abe ate kiti ndirla bala ofiso kono tumo.
How did you know that?
Ite wolo nyadile.
Well, we were all there, right at in fact, we were going up and down between the court and the chambers, asking the clerks about the time. It's time for judgment, but the answer is, my lord is in chambers.
Bari mbele bijenu mbetani nala mbesele ninji wala nkakilako lunyininka watu la ko kitite watu sitale bari kajabiro mendina wala mde kitindirla nyimbala ofiso kono.
Was his lordship in his chambers alone?
O atenyen kiti tela nyin ada mala bala nu ofiso kono ba.
Well, the rumor,
Nga mwela mwe kumo memwe.
which I cannot confirm independently because I did not see it,
Me ya lon ko nta tonya ya ndino landam man kunkilo katu mfango nyamaje.
was that there were plainclothes officers in his chambers.
Ko molle bala ofiso kono wotumo men ya lon ko ibuka uniform dung bari service lalle muite.
Which service did they belong to?
Boran na tanko bunda fanna jumalto.
Well, we believe that it was the then NIA.
Ndelata men na wala mnyinti wotumo wo NIA ulu men be caring.
Because the NIA are following our proceedings on a daily basis.
Sato NIA ulu be bulari nto lanyin kito normally luolunding.
But at 1:30, when the judge came to court,
Bari talankilin nintala bilin kiti ndirla faunata kiti bundala.
he came with a judgment that resulted to a conviction.
Anin kiti teo men nata nyola wole mnyimolu purke sorong.
But the way he walked into the court,
Bari atama to duntanang kiti bungu kono nyameng.
delivered a marathon judgment,
Anata kumajang sata je menketa kiti teo kenyati.
walked out of the court back to his office,
Anata finti kiti bunda kono nyameng katala ofisoto.
created a lot of doubts
We hakili nyami jamale sabu.
about his personal well-being.
Mentilinta te fango kumo fango tara nyala.
Because what we are made to understand was that these officers in his chambers had to pin him down to reverse his previous judgment.
Katun telinata memwe. wala nyinti ko nyin official menu ma uniform dum menu bala office o kono ya sindi le force o kan pour atanyanta kito tela nu nyamin ka wo falling ka kudo kije me yalon ko men nin kiti atela kiti tinya pareta men nanum men ni wote kilindi.
And I can believe this because I can see it written all over his face.
Adu ngala wala kadu hanni ate fango nyada jube ibalon na anyada leto.
And the way and manner he came in and delivered his judgment and out of the court.
Aning anata dum kiti bumo kono nyamen ananya aning ay kumo nyim banke nyamin aning biraye bandi anata finti of kiti bunda kono nyamin wol be mutaman serol le.
So you believe there was judicial interference? Interference in the judiciary.
That was obvious.
What was the basis of the conviction? Was it that letter of supposed letter by Sabali or supposed statement by Sabali?
For yalani nyamena wala nyindiko Sabali
Yeah, that was the only evidence of the prosecution. So obviously that is the only basis of the judgment.
Did you appeal?
No, I did not file an appeal because my client instructed for his own peace and safety and tranquility to let the matter rest.
Man kitisa inkan kanin ka tun ta fa la kiliano wala na tanyi ya maro diko na koti ja ta fa la tanko anala fansoto anala kairo kan pour na ko nyin tuji.
But another interesting situation arose before the judgment. When obviously even the gallery who attend the court knows that these people will end up with an acquittal.
And
while that trial is going on, to ensure that he is not discharged and acquitted and freed, another charge was leveled against Dr. Ba again. And another abuse of office. And this time that was tried by the Banjul Magistrates Court. Once this was completed, we continued with the one in the Magistrates Court.
Wouldn't judicial economy have demanded that they consolidate the cases?
Oh, kiti bunda ni walman sembo ni sort of in case flow ni beta ke kafundi ni wakaka killing.
The High Court has obvious jurisdiction to hear any matter.
Na kiti bunda ba ni High Court wani silo sotole purka ko kundi lammo ni kitolem.
But the reason for the second charge was the anticipation that this man may be acquitted. That warranted a second charge against him. And that went up to ending when it's time for judgment. When the state filed a nollie. Nolly prosecute that they are no longer interested in prosecuting. But that was after serving his 2-year sentence already.
Interesting.
Yes.
But your belief is these are trumped-up charges. For what objective?
Yeah, the primary objective of both to ensure that what the former president said was right.
Avoko member president ala lungo tumonda kuma commanding for
He did not give instructions for the arrest and prosecution of Justice Wowo.
Wala minde ko kafoko atamani ya marodi pour Justice Wowo muta aninka kitini.
Are you saying, Mr. Mboch, that he lied? And in order to cover up for that lie, these people had to go to jail. Attorney General, Solicitor General, and Secretary General of the government?
Exactly.
Dem foka wala minti ko nundo president membe nun jango ay kuma soto balol fa fani yale fo ka tun ka abe o keno la nya wala nyindi ka be maboro nyi abe o timmandino la fanka nya wala nyindi kanyum molta ke soron man sakunda la minister me marre luwal ni kitindiri kunya la be nun je attorney secretary general be nun je
do ku be kunton ko
do ku wal be la nyaadon ko fana be on maberi nje ñun be tara je ay soron.
Exactly what happened, because the issue of Justice Wowo when the American embassy got involved changed the whole scenario.
Wala keta katu bring America la embassy o ya dabula Justice Wowo la koto dron
And they were
wala nata ko be falling and the kanale fon kiti bundala.
They were coming to court on every sitting.
Si wosi nin kito be kala wolu kanale kiti bundala.
But that was a very expensive cover-up.
Well,
it led to the trial of and conviction of all three top government officials.
And wala nata ke daliloti
In fact, the most senior civil servant.
Wala nata ke daliloti ya nyimmo sabo be soron adunya jibe nyilumu banko kan alifa ballet nun katu ila palasol men bebulu amanke dindim palasiti katu memmarata banko do kula bela banko do kula bela kunton ko dabe wala kon.
But all these things happened in a climate wherein the executive had little tolerance for defense lawyers who were basically a nuisance to them, or defense lawyers who were pretty much a stumbling block for the government securing conviction in cases in which they were interested in.
Yimbe kera jamane la me ya lonko akera jamane me alonko akera jamane kolango kono me alonko be gani mol be ta ki kitindi executive même santon kolti mam bunyani hormo soto nyi loyal me alonko wala tara lori nyi molie tumi molie hanin kabi kane ke dabula kitiol nyi kono loyal nyi fana hani ko ku fenke ibukana hormoni bunya tamanda ko nyi kono.
Perhaps let's not cast it in institutional terms. Let's just call the personalities. Yaya Jammeh
Nkana samba ni ndoku bunda la sila nga samba mo kunkilina la kula wala yaya jammeti
wanted convictions in cases in which he was interested in.
Ala fita ka pour ka sorondiro e soto pour mola melango tumi mola andu atay sulo soto case nyindole
And had little tolerance for defense counsel who were making things difficult.
Andu loyal mi melango wala tara lori wo mole tumi mole nyi abuka son woli melango wala bi loro tumi mole abuka son ife wala loro tumi mole.
Yes, I think you are giving a little bit of credence to his reactions. It's a zero tolerance, not little tolerance.
Namira munta telaw balanda ibo nyinyandi kane ka fo little wala demanding ay songo demanding ka man so mume kele wala zero tolerance abuka pare ka wala kumo fo ka wala ko fo ta fereng.
He's referring to defense lawyers. I'm saying he had zero tolerance for lawyers.
Awala lawyer lumeni alon ko e ka lo muta molie ate mam pare wala ko fo ta la nyawnyandi nyama.
I didn't realize it was that bad, but thanks for that correction.
Can
you give us examples of some of the events that took place which suggest that he had zero tolerance for lawyers?
Well, my colleagues who came before me mentioned some examples.
Yes,
but I was part of the defense team in the Baba Job trial. And we all agreed that the shooting of the then and our learned senior counsel Usman Silla
andu na tanyi je ko wotumo nkafunyo memmun na kebati wotumo loya ya la karola ya bung menketa Usman Sillate wo bondiro
was as a result of his defense of Baba Job.
wala keta nyin kamma ko aketa moliti mello ta Baba Job ye.
And the case of my Fati also.
Andu my Fati fanana ko fanam.
What happened to Mr. Fati?
Mr. Fati.
We were all part of the same team. After Mr. Silla's case and he was evacuated, the next in terms, not seniority because I senior him, but the next in charge of the case
Mr. Silla kola mo du fulanja o membe maralin kito la manke ko atele bente nyato nya keba yala bari kito nyi na karola ate be mo le kono menu martala
Mr. Maifati.
Wala Mr. Maifati ti.
And then I am made to understand
ina tanyi itande na purunga fahamu ko
that his accident was not a coincidence but designed.
Ala accident ay moto accident men soto amanke ko kule me ya lonko abentafe bari fere sitiri ngolom ye men fero siti akamma pour ka da bondi kolko
to get rid of him in the defense as well.
Wala ka da bondi wo mummolu ye men ya lonko be lorin non mutamoli ye.
And I got confirmation of this fact.
Andu nata wo tonya keso sotong
the team that conducted the accident.
Ka fo molu menu family accident o parendi Mr. Fati Kama.
You mean the team that staged the accident?
That managed the accident, personally made these confessions.
Many accident o fango parendi mai Fati Kama wolu fangolu
myself whilst I was in prison.
Who's that?
I can't recall the names.
Mr. Mboj, we can give you a piece of paper to write down the name.
No, I cannot recall the names. But I think my
is that a way out of the situation? You could still write the name down, Mr. Mboj.
No, it's not one. It's a team.
It's a team. Which makes it easier for you. If you can't remember one, you could remember the other.
My learned friend who came before me, Nene Cham, represented them in the court for their mandamos. Compelled their appearance before the court and they were discharged unconditionally. It was a team of 7 members.
Junglers, NIA personnel, or what?
Well, they don't belong to the junglers. This is another group that is conducting massacres, accidents, carrying out personal attacks against critics in any way. As long as they are given instructions, they carry it out.
Menu be mo fala nun kamolu boyin kan kamolu tajireya atuta dron kangole buluni kango di tolla dron ye kuma o kuma fay toliye amunta tel ni wala kawli kata bara wala.
Do you recall the name of the group?
Kafo nyinga to ya hakilo ya mutalaba.
I know they are within the army.
Na lon ko be sojar bundale kono.
But they were moved from the main from the barracks
to
the state house.
Ye be samba state house.
So they were among the state guards.
Italta state guard mansa kantarla le kono.
And what kind of uniforms did they wear?
They don't wear uniform. They don't wear uniforms. And I can tell you how they even. Sorry?
Who was the leader of the group?
No, this is what I'm saying. I can't recall the names because I wrote even their stories down on a piece of paper. I lost papers, but I can remember the stories.
I'll give you a list of names and tell me whether any of them rings a bell.
isina na fonye ko fo nyimol be nyinu tol men volé fo mo be sorole kono la ba me alon ko abulade sondo mo kon
Musa Jame.
Musa Jame
No, no, no.
Tumbul Tamba.
No, I know all those ones. Not those.
Sadamanja.
Sanamanja
No, no, no.
Nuhabaji.
no habaji
No.
Ali
Fansu Nyabali.
fansu nyabali
Fansu. The name sounds familiar. That Fansu. I think Fansu was one of them. I think I can recall that name.
hakilo yo to mutale ngamera adabe kono le mfansu
Because they were detained in Mile 2. I found them there.
katu ye mutama el tule nte fanga yetel tarajele
And they were coming individually to come and tell me their own story.
andu nyilu kilin na le kanante kan ikane ifangol la kumo satanye
They were junglers.
jongulalla
All right. I didn't know they were junglers, but I know they had jeeps.
malo nun ko jongla lumude bari ngalon ko bitun nyim moto moto ndigul be bulle nun
By jeeps you mean 4x4.
Military jeeps.
sojar motolu
And they have taxis.
andun taxiolu
They
fana
have vans.
vanolu be
They have
bulu
trucks.
andu moto balu be bulu
And these were the vehicles that were used to coordinate the accident of Mr. Fati.
yo moto le dunta ke muna fanga la pour Mr. Fati la accident o ya tamandi ni wo moto le la
But this method of eliminating enemies by way of staged accidents
ba nyin tamandiri nyala pour ka sidi mo kam me alon ko jawol lem ka ke ni nyala même accident wala siloti
or vehicle tampering was not limited to just Mr. Fati.
o mandam Mr. Fati dronna de
Yeah, I agree with that.
ha nson tawala le
Could you give us other examples where you believe these methods were used?
fay si misalo dol dinna ite lata damendo ko nyin tamandiri nya sifa waranto nyin fere sifa e wala sidi o mari fanan kam
I had the personal experience myself.
nda fango kumo men fele jang aketan nale
Tell us about them.
ma fonye woto ba
Well, the first one was, I believe, an NIA officer.
follow lata la ko ena edu kula
Name,
so
Well, at the time, I didn't know the name.
akobe kala tumo na mama ri tolonde
But through my own investigations, I later realized it was Mr. Lamin Bojang.
na kisikisiro kono kulu kola nata tara wotumo le ko ka fayne Lamin Bojang
residing where?
Jambanjeli.
amari be sirin jambanjeli
The first attempt was even at my house.
kata folo men ayake o mum fango la bungo fango kono leti de mbirna bungo kono
Which year was that?
sanjuma
In Brikama, this was in 2006,
mubiri kama leti 2006 sango kono
during the treason trial.
wato men banko jamfa jawo kitolu be
Of
keri
which case?
yes juma
Bunja Dabo and Co, Farin Sanyang and Wasa Kamara and others.
wala mbunja dabo farin sanyang wasa kamara nin kotangol la kito be ke kantu momen
Where were the proceedings holden?
kiti nyinga kenu mindole
At the Yundum Yundum Barracks.
sa kitolu nyil ke yundum sojar kordal to
Proceed.
what nekata
I already started my Maghrib prayers
ngulta lembe ngasalo damuta
when my sister ran to call my attention.
mbar musoni mboro nata kankumandi
There was somebody in my car.
mobe nango to kono
Where was the vehicle parked?
moto nyimbe lori no mindole
Inside your premises or outside?
korda kono bam fu korda e bantala
The vehicle was inside my compound.
moto be lori na korda fangole kono wotumo
Was it a fenced property?
korda nyi ya sansan fensol la ba
The property is fully fenced with a gate.
korda be sansan dinne fa pareta hanfo bunda be korda la
But I cut my prayers.
nanna salo kuntu
Whilst coming out,
mbe finti kantu mo men na kana banta
I had the bang of the door.
ngamoto bunda busa kango moy
When I came out to the gate,
brinna ta bunda la korda bunda la
I saw this vehicle zooming off with top speed.
nani moto haynanga nim bori babita kan
Can you describe the vehicle?
moto nyin la kala nyi sa fo no mole ba moto nyaali lem
It's a four-wheel.
nyimmu moto timme ya lonko asinano be ka choki ka fole 4 wheel
It's all black
bebe finding
with tinted glasses
awero fang bebe dibiring
and without a number plate.
adu number te moto nyinna.
What did you learn from that?
Itina na mune karan wo baroto o kuoto.
Well, at the moment, I immediately sensed that this is a plan execution of an evil.
Hakilo me muta otemboto ko fere sitiri ngolo nyindi me ya lonko amario ya wuli men kama wala mkama siboke.
By who?
Kabo jumaka.
Well, I suspected then that it was the NIA.
Musobita otembo ko NIA wala.
I don't know the person.
Atu Mario long.
Because I knew then that they drive those sort of cars.
Atu otembo ngalo ne ko iteleka o moto fasongo luborindi.
But then my mind just told me to let it go because it's not safe to chase somebody who's trying to put you in trouble. You have chasing trouble, so I let it go.
Baring hakilo nata nyindi nako. Nyintutu laje ayeta. Katu momen lafta nyoma siba jawo kelete marila. Purka o bay. Ima kalangolong amankwe.
But that was not the end of it, was it?
Pero ko dandula mangi woto defo.
No, certainly not.
Hani amanda woto de.
Proceed.
The second time,
Sinya fulanjango.
another plan execution like that
Ye fere dobe fanam city membe ko wo.
was during my trial
Wala mumna kito be ke kantu momeng.
at the Banyan Magistrates Court.
Banyunu kiti bunda bala magistrate court.
I parked my car outside the court,
Nanga moto londi kiti bunda e banta.
went to the court,
Data kiti bunda la.
and came back.
Muruta nang.
At the end of the case,
Ring kito nyimbanta.
and I was going home with my family in the car.
Ninna dimbaya lu bebe moto kono mbese ikang.
But then my tire was shaking,
Nna moto simu be jara jara kang.
and I could feel from the steering that there is something wrong with the vehicle.
Hani baro membe mbulo kono ayaitandi nako kule keta motola.
Then I could not stop inside Banjul to check.
Mallo no banyunu sate okono purka jube.
So I drive until I got out of Banjul
Nga moto borindi wanyale fom fintita banyunu.
and stopped to check my car.
Lota purka na moto jube.
My tires, bolts were all loose.
Na moto simula bulongo lu yewlu be yom fandile wotumo.
And 2 have dropped already, only 3 were remaining.
Fulo be jolon telefang amonta sabole tuta dinkirato.
For each of the tires, for each of the wheels, or just one?
Roll moto singol be bam before moto jadu sing.
Only the driver's side.
Drive for la karo dorong.
And then I called my family in the car to come and see as witnesses.
Nana dimbaya lu kumandi menu bemfe moto kono puri fanali finti yenaje keste doti.
And that rang a bell in my mind
Woyetalango mama ndin sondo mokono.
that the NIAs are following my case on a daily basis.
Oto nying ena elu belna kono male luolu nding.
And this could be another trap
Adu nyim fanansi ke fere doti.
to get me involved in an accident.
Puro insidung accident okono nyameng.
And there would be a third time.
Certainly, yes.
Sabanja fanan fere sabanda ya fanan de ba.
Certainly, yes.
Sabanja ofanam biji.
Tell us about that.
Kuma fanan de ba.
This was also during the treason trial.
Nyim fanan keta wato me wato banko jam faja ukito be kering.
It was time for Tobaske,
Banna salo le wato sita.
and I was going home to the village.
Mbese kan katalna sate oto bolonkono.
And I had my whole family in the car.
Na dimbaya lu bebe mfe moto kono.
But then the vehicle was loaded, fully loaded with,
Moto be sarsering abe faring.
I can't even, more than 11 people. All the seats were occupied. I parked even the boys at the boot.
Otumo moto be faring ne tep. Hani na kamba ndinglu ngesi dolu sindi na moto koma.
But then, due to the load,
Bari moto la duno la kulia kama.
I could sense from my steering when I started driving
Ringa moto borindo damuta nganyi korosi baro bembulo kono nga korosi ko.
that there is a problem with my car.
Onna moto ay ello sotole koteke.
I stopped
Lota
and checked the tires,
nga moto simulu nyili jibe.
but none of them was shaking.
ilintije mem ka jara jara wotumo
It was dark.
bar wayni dibobe dundi
It was
wotumo
after Maghrib prayers.
ka to dumo safo salo fo tambita
I didn't notice that my bolts have been loosened again.
bari makolo siko yatara yara yen namoto simulu bulongol le yom fandi ko take
And this time it was the rear tires.
adu nyi silo koma singulu
So I was driving again, and still I sensed that the car was not driving normally.
kotake muruta moto kono ngada motaka moto borindi bari kotake hanimbi ngaje ko moto nyin hanimbi ello biji
Because it was shaking at the back.
atu koma be jara jara kan
Was it overload? I mean, for a 7-passenger vehicle to carry 11 people.
It's not only the people. I loaded a lot of stuff in the vehicle, and even the roof of the vehicle was loaded.
amanka molu dammanti moto nyi nga fandile kato hani moto kungo kan santo duni kelula nga baga sulu kiji
But then I just out of caution drive safely and carefully.
bari bitun hakiltuo kamma ka moto burindi hakilo anin crossrola anin hakiltuo
But when I finished Kalaji, then the tar road stopped at Kalaji.
ba wotumo mano danta kallaji le bitun birintata hanfo no mano ban kallaji
And then I entered Kiang.
ndunta kiyang
Then there is gravel and the road was bad.
andu wotumo bere silo sila nseleta wole kan adu silo nyi mambetea
And I was driving, I just had my car boom on the ground.
mbe moto burindi kan tenata mune moy na moto boy boy ta dumala kumata bum
When I got down,
rinjita
I couldn't find my tires.
man na moto
You couldn't find your wheels.
My wheels.
man na moto singulu je
And it was late and dark.
andu wotumo sokuta dibodunta
And it was raining at the same time.
andu wo tembo fanan samajiyo be ke kan
But I had no choice.
bari fere do tembulu
Well, I would understand if the tires had busted. Then maybe we could say it's weight.
Yes.
But for the wheels to wheel away.
Away from the vehicle.
moto singulu buta moto fango balale fereng
And then the car,
How many wheels?
the two back tires went off.
moto koma simfulo bele buta moto bala
Because the first went this way and the second went the other way.
kadu folo nyin tata be ma fango men na silo bula flan jaw nyin fanan be karo men no fanan tata
You believe your car was fingered?
jigita nyinna ko ila moto nyi bulo mata la
Yeah, that was for sure, for definite. And I will tell you again why.
wode mu kuleti men koytamma adum do fanan dalilo fulen
I came to realize that this officer who was, to me, assigned and personally monitoring me
nata korosi ko ye nyimari men tombo mpura e bulantela kolu no makankorosi kana kalango jibe
he passes through my gate at Maghrib time
akatambi na korda dala fitiri wati fitiro sita
when it is dark.
nindi bodunta
And this time around,
andu nyi silo
I parked my car outside.
nanna moto londi banta
After loading it,
biringa sarse foka
I
pa
went to pray Maghrib
ndata fitiri salola
and then came out to start my journey to the village.
fintita nam purka tama silo damota katanna bulu sate oto
So again, it occurred to me
otake as bulatan sondo mo kono ko
that it could be the same person
ase keno ko atewo mo kilingo lemu
who is just trying to make me crash and have an accident.
memba katakan dorong purun tenga na moto e boy na accident jawo soto
That is it.
wala
And it seemed that during that time you were basically prone to accidents.
mununda fere ko wato la ita molde me yalon ko accident ode kula me yalon ko katu kelela
Yeah, not from natural causes anyway.
abuka ke koti ka foko alandaro lem
Accidents are never caused by natural causes. Vehicle accidents are not caused by natural causes. They're caused by people.
mon ka accident o sabude
What happened? What happened in the first instance?
Yeah, several, after those 3 attempts,
Bring wo kusabolu botala.
This time it was a taxi
Nyinsilo taxi olem.
at my gate again,
Nakorda bunda la
and
kotake.
at night again,
Suto la kotake.
and at odd hour.
Ando anatake wati sangara le.
Then everyone was in bed.
Wato men katara mo bebe laring.
At around what time?
Ontoro wadi juma.
This was between 11 to 12.
Nyum kabo talantan nim kilin kata talantan nim fulakan suto.
And what happened?
Naketa.
I went out for a mission,
Mfuntita ntata kule noma sata utumu.
and I came back between 11:30 to 12.
Birin saytanan talantan nim kilin nim tala kata talantan nim fulokan.
And when I approached my gate,
Biringan tilin na korda dala.
and the full lights was on my gate,
Ngamoto lampolu be wulindi kalo na korda dakang.
this taxi was parked at my gate.
Nyin taxi belori na korda da fangola.
There was a driver inside,
Raifo be akono.
and there was somebody between the vehicle and my gate.
Bari mo fanan tartije membe moto ni na korda da tema.
Well, this time it was digging,
Nyin silo amari be sindirole la kadin kosin.
and I don't know what it was for.
Andu malo aka mundin kale sinje.
So when I approached,
Rin kata tanam.
the one digging got into the vehicle,
Membe sindirola bulata moto
see,
kono.
and drove off.
Inim moto
Again
kina
with
moto
speed.
butaje. Inim bori bade.
So when I got to the gate,
Birin futata korda dala.
obviously I saw the marks,
Birin ngamarke ulu jije.
Or the hole?
the hole already, because he started digging.
Ngadin ko jije kado tuma dinka simule damuta.
But
See anything in the hole?
no, he could not complete the mission.
Ani amang ko banno.
So I just went in, I stood and looked at the vehicle. I could see it zooming with speed.
No tare donga moto nyin jube kado tuma nimbori babita kan.
And then I went home and I could not wake anyone because everyone was in bed.
Bitun tata suutu mole mammo kunin kado tuma mo be yela.
How did you feel with all these incidents? What impact did they have on you?
Nyum kolbe be yalon ko ilate kan. Iti yakuta ye nyadi le. Iti ila balu ko nyum kolbe be late kan.
Yeah, just making you more cautious.
Nyimbe mu kulleti menke mari la fa hakilo la puriye hakilo tu.
Because it's not out of fear,
Amanke sila nyati.
because if you have faith,
Kadu nidan kene yata.
it's difficult to get you harmed.
Aka koleale puru ye mantora jawole kan.
But faith does not shield you from fear, does it?
Reka dankene ya ofana mbuke mari mabode puru kasila de.
It's fear that will expose you to the harm.
Wo silanya wole fango kana ke dalilo ti menke futandi o mantoroma.
When you have faith in God,
Bari niye dankene ya soto ala la karola.
you don't fear anybody.
Ibuka sila
You
momo
don't fear anything.
Ibuka sila fem.
Were you apprehensive of the situation? Were you worried for your safety and security?
Ko nyimbe kabing nyinka kila. Fo inata na de ila fango la tankola la.
Yeah, that is obvious. I was worried. I was worried, but not afraid.
Bari mansila. Ayenda unne dorom bari mansila.
And more serious things were to happen later.
Andun ku jawo dol na ka soto ke kale kan nyato do mande.
That
Tell us
is
about it.
Mo fanya woldo.
this time. It was around 2016.
Silo 2016 sango konole.
Was the end of the Denya Jame regime,
Tumo ya jame mansa kunda bina banna.
and in particular,
Andun aketa ko ku beke ku keta
in December 2016.
December karo kono 2016.
I got news myself
Na kibaro soto ntefango kuno.
that some lawyers were being listed
Webe lawyer lu safe kan.
for possible arrest,
Pro asekeno ye mario lu muta.
to ensure that there is no one available
Pour kaje ko mo kanana soto.
to swear in the incoming president.
Pour nanu be president na la kalindila.
I heard of SM Tambidu,
nga moy SM tambe du to fota
LS Camara
ning LS Camara
and myself.
nin defa ngokno.
But then I had already moved from Brikama this time.
Bari wota wayatara len defa ngokno mbota Brikama le de nyin silo.
Kanifing.
But before then, let's talk about your accident.
Yes, that's another very, very interesting accident. Because it's difficult, really difficult, because this time it was a real attempt on my life. This was a truck, 10-wheel truck. And I up to date. I don't know the driver. I don't know the owner. Not seen them. None of them has been arrested. Neither prosecuted. So the accident just went. This accident occurred in August 2016 whilst I was going to work.
Accident occurred August 2016.
And I don't know exactly what happened because I was trying to make a call. I just had.
Who was driving?
I had a driver then. I just had a bang on my car. And all I can hear from people around is, he's dead, he's dead. And the news went round that I was dead in an accident. But then God saved my life. Because I would have been dead if not for only God's will and design. Because the truck would have climbed over my vehicle and smashed everyone inside.
How many people were in the vehicle?
I was with my wife and all my kids.
I hope this time not 11 people in the car.
No, not this time, because then I was going with my brothers as well.
How serious was this accident?
This could have resulted to the wiping out of not myself but my family as well.
How many people?
We were 5.
How serious was the accident?
This truck was driving at a speed of not less than 80 kilometers. And my driver was also rushing to catch up with the 9 o'clock case I had.
Aduna driver fanambe hawjari wotumo puru nse futa wairi wotumo talankononto kito bembulunu nyanta menkela.
Now, due to a sudden break in front of him,
yo bari lo sangarale nata ke atenyato.
He swerved on the left.
Atenata jenke mara karola.
I was sitting on the passenger side.
Ndebe siring pasaso sidulalto driver bala.
And in a flash of a second, this truck was over my head. The noise was so much that it's like a bomb. And all you could hear was that he's dead, he's dead. But the tire of the truck climbed over the tire of my vehicle.
wo seletantela moto singole kang
And that's why the truck could not climb over me.
wole ya kendi moto bañi man seleno nte kang
But due to the speed of the truck,
bari moto bañi aning sembo membe bori kang
it had to drag my vehicle up to almost 10 meters from the scene.
ay na moto kuruntule membitala han fo meter tang kabo
Dragging,
takidula
pushing my car like that up to a fence.
ay na moto kuruntu wonyale han fo ka nakindi sansango bala
And that's where the driver could stop his truck.
driver ni yala moto londino jele
But I could see the bumper of the truck over my head.
bari moto nying ala bompa wala nyinte ala kubero membe komala no jeng kuntole
That is how serious the accident was.
nying accident go jawyata tenne
Were you conscious throughout?
o wato be fambulle ba
Yeah, I was conscious.
manketu mbe nyala mbe fambu
My son was on my lap,
ndimma be siri ngutol le kan
his head smashed on the dashboard.
bara kuma senta moto ni nyato
Got three fractures on the head.
ay farada saba soto ay baramada saba soto afongoto akumoto
I didn't realize that I got a fracture
ndefango utembo de malonko nkulo e ello soto le
until I wanted to get out of the vehicle.
fo wato men lafta ka finti moto kono
When I realized that I had a fracture.
utembo le ngalonko mfana ngabara mo soto le
But then those who came to the scene to help me out
rimenu nata je kanante mako pour nga finti moto kono
not open the doors because they were all smashed.
man dalu nyulo yeleno kato dalu be tetale wotumo
I had to improvise to get myself out of the vehicle.
fo nga fero le ke ngam fam fintindi moto kono nyami.
How could you survive that impact? What isolated you from the impact of the car, from the impact of the hit?
Of the truck.
ko le anyi me alon ko late kan akeno ro nyaali fo ina na kanano wodo fo ko
Did your vehicle have airbags?
No, there was no airbag in the car.
moto nyimman fonyo boto soto men ka molu tankandi
I was wearing my seat belt.
na belto be mbala moto la
That saved
siram
me, and
belto
that's why my son went over and hit the dashboard.
wala ente kanandi bari wala yakendi ndingu membe nguto kan ate munta ate nyif fighta nyato akumo senta moto wero la nyato wero.
Two things to learn from that.
ufula be wala karana akuoto
Wear your seat belt.
ila belto city
Don't hold a kid or place a kid on your lap sitting in the front of a car.
kana dindu ta ya sika ni be moto siri muro nyato ay si wuto kan muro nyato.
Mr. Chair, we take the first break and we will return later.
Thank
you, Councillor, and thank you, Mr. Mbo. You will come back in 30 minutes. 12:30. Thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned.